Welcome to the Midwest Blitz. It's college football comfort food for the Midwest soul. Now, here are your hosts, Coach Drew and Big Nick.
Welcome back to another edition of the Midwest Blitz. It is now, week 3 we're recapping here, Nick?
Week 3, that's right.
Well, with further ado, we're going to do our dues in the Midwest, and we start off with the yup.
Yeah, yup.
Well, Nick, AP story time. It's now the recap. It came out earlier today as we record on a Sunday. Ohio State stole number 1. Penn State's number 2. Oregon, number 6 now, dropping 2 slots. Illinois State at 9. Coming out of the gate, Indiana 19 moved up 3 after blowing out their opponent 73-0 and starting the ball at the 20-yard line every time. All right, Michigan 21.
Wait, hold on. You know how hard it is to have 600 yards of total offense when you start every drive at the 20-yard line like the Hoosiers pretty much did. They deserve some credit for that.
Yeah, we're just referencing the highlight I just watched of them earlier today, but, have to poke the bear because, well, we'll get there in a second. Michigan's 21. They moved up 2 slots in the poll. This team somehow has now lost 2 games, and the integrity of the AP still favors them to be 24th overall. Is no other than our favorite team on the Midwest Blitz for Coach Drew, Notre Dame's Fighting Irish, as I was there this weekend witnessing that in the end zone. It was my end zone, but I'm not going to dwell there. We're going to have a lot of time to talk about that later in the podcast. And USC, the game I'm also going to with Coach Nick over there on the side. We're both going to that game later in the season. They're 25, which has already sparked rivalry discussion as USC is getting shit on for being 25, undefeated, while Notre Dame now is 0-2 and is above them, 24. So that's really sparking debates already here on the Midwest Blitz and across the country. As it's getting time to get into rivalry season, Big Ten season, MAC season, all of it's coming into fruition, not for independent teams like Notre Dame, as their season may or may not be over. Again, I'm not trying to get in there too much right now, but, moment of silence, not everybody makes it to the Big Ten regular season ending games, or season starting, I should say, or the MAC, as UCLA's head coach Foster has been fired after starting 0-3 with 2 major losses to the Midwest. After acquiring one of the biggest transfer portal acquisitions from Tennessee, Nico Amalivia. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
As a fan who remembers when Coach Foster was a running back for the Bruins back in the day, I want to have a moment of silence for Coach Foster for getting fired. Quick, you bow our heads for a second. Coach Foster, we wish it was Nico that got fired and not you. All right, yeah. That's a shame, because Nico's a bum, dude. You should have seen him the other night. I actually stayed up when I got home from reffing my game Friday night and watched UCLA for a while. Dude, Nico's awful. And he got Foster fired, which maybe Foster bringing him in, it was his own fault. But, dude, Nico's good enough to get you fired. He's got recruiting stars next to his name, and he doesn't produce anything on the field.
Yeah, the rumor mill has already been spinning as the Midwest Blitz has been covering it on X, as we try to find all the niches and crevices that we can find ourselves into. One of the rumors is Foster actually went up to the AD and told him that this guy isn't who projects to be UCLA and doesn't do well and, et cetera, all these bad things. And
he sucks?
I'm sure.
Is that what he told him?
Yeah, basically the nicest terms. He sucks, and the AD looked at him, and I don't know if the AD was the one behind the signing and made sure they got him in with the transfer portal, or Foster did, and Foster was sold false gold, because that's what happens when you go to the Golden State. Sometimes you get false gold. So,
yep, they definitely got some with Nico. Have fun with that. Oh, I'll be in Bloomington when the Bruins come to town. We'll set an over-under on how many times he gets sacked in that game here in a couple weeks.
That's if he's still a starting quarterback. Who knows? He might enter in the transfer portal. 0-3 is not a fun time. We already have him. We had him on the hot seat once they lost Game 1 in the transfer portal. He's holding his ground as we're in Game 3. Maybe we'll do some digging and find out if he has NIL potential buyouts if he leaves early, like a pro contract.
Welcome to 2025. Thank you, transfer portal.
Well, you're welcome. All right, Nick. Well, it's time to do what we do and to go around the horn to some of the games that we previewed. And just to let you guys know, I'm basically in the refrigerator this week. I'm in the icebox. I usually have one bad weekend. Hopefully it's this one. Go ahead, Nick.
Want to do Wisconsin, Bama?
Yeah, let's go to Wisconsin, Bama.
So we had high hopes for the Badgers as they went down to Bama to try and avenge the embarrassing loss they had at home last year against the Crimson Tide. But I'd say it went a little better this year. But the Wisconsin offense just really wasn't up to the task against Bama's defense. Now, I will say Wisconsin's run defense was absolutely great in this game. We'll get down to some numbers here in a second. But when Wisconsin stopped the run early, Bama just said, yeah, we're just going to throw the ball instead. It'll be fine. And it was. Ty Simpson, in addition to having some great scrambling plays, the Alabama quarterback who was criticized after a loss to Florida State in their first game, threw for 4 touchdowns. And I don't have the number here, about 400 yards or something. Ty Simpson pretty much had a field day against the Wisconsin secondary group, including Ricardo Hallman, who I hoped would be able to slow him down. Instead, unfortunately, Mr. Hallman, who was one of my picks on the all Midwest Blitz preseason team, was victim to a Caden Proctor pancake block about 25 yards downfield that would be considered felony assault anywhere except on a football field. The Wisconsin pass defense was absolutely torched by Alabama. Ryan Williams had 165 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. Like I said, Simpson had 4 touchdowns. It was pretty much an offensive highlight reel for Alabama after the first quarter in the passing game. Danny O'Neal threw 2 interceptions, which, I mean, he was under a lot of pressure. He was taking some hits. And as we said going into this game, I was a little concerned to have your backup quarterback and your backup center in the game at the same time. That held true on game day. Those were supposed to be game time decisions. So it was tough for Wisconsin to execute on offense. But as I said, their defense was great against the run game, which will hold good tidings for them when the Big Ten season starts. They have a tough schedule moving forward too, but they do have a really good run defense, which we saw against Miami, Ohio. We covered that game. Drew hit a bet on that game. I've got a question though. Is Alabama going to continue to struggle running the ball? Because I think they only had 70-some rushing yards against Wisconsin in this game. Like I said, they did kind of abandon the run and just went to the pass when they realized it was going to be tough sledding in the run game. But they didn't run the ball well against Florida State either. So that's something to keep an eye on if you're tracking the SEC is, Bama really hasn't had success running the ball, and they're supposed to have one of the best offensive lines. They definitely have one of the best offensive linemen, maybe a top 5 pick in Caden Proctor, but they haven't been able to put it together in the run game. I do want to give a shout out again to the Wisconsin defense. I want to give a shout out to Deontay Lawson and the Crimson Tide front 7 who made life miserable for Danny O'Neal and the Wisconsin offense. Unfortunately, we had high hopes for you, Wisconsin, but I was listening to this game on the radio when I was on the way home from reffing my game Saturday morning, and O'Neal threw an interception in the first quarter, and I was like, this is not how we want this game to go as Big Ten fans, but bright spot. Go ahead.
He did throw a duck there.
Bright
Not
spot,
great.
though, the defense, running defense is really solid for Wisconsin. So they do have something to build on moving forward and potentially getting some of the starters back that had to sit the game out due to injury.
Yeah, one of the things that a lot of times people compare to the Big Ten, you see this, you hear this a lot, is run, run, run. We don't really pass the ball a lot in the Big Ten. And the reason is because of inclement weather, either it's raining, snowing, windy, you live it up. If you could run the ball here, we don't have domes. It's not the NFL. So with that being said, we like to run the ball a lot. And Alabama likes to toss the ball and everything. I do believe you did mention this deal before, just in notes. Didn't you say the starting running back for Alabama was still out, a healthy scratch or a scratch for that game?
I do not think that Jam Miller played in that game.
Which, again, could be a rhythm thing. But, again, Bama, or I would say Wisconsin, had their backup quarterback in there, Tyler O'Neal, and he just could not. He couldn't hang. And it's hard to hang against Bama, especially Bama that's pissed off at home. I'm sure Nick Saban has been on campus secretively trying to figure out what's going on and what's going right. And he's like, "Oh man, we're Wisconsin fans too. We're in a really bad situation." And I was like, "Yeah, you guys one of the hardest schedules in all of college football." He's like, "Yeah, we can't even turn it on anymore. Luckily, we have the Packers." Which then I said, well, I have the Bears and hopefully Notre Dame, which, again, I don't want to dwell on Notre Dame because we're going to have a lot of time to talk about. But if you're watching this, you already know what happened. So let's continue on, Nick. Let's go to the next game.
I liked you bringing up that they say in the Big Ten they run the ball. That's what they do, run, run, run. Yeah, In the Midwest, we have the running game and we have defense. We hit people and we tackle people and we run the football. The South has speed, but this is not a game we're really going to cover. But I don't know if anyone saw any of the stats from the Arkansas Ole Miss game, but it was basically like running offense on air. The South has speed. They've had great football teams. Not saying they don't play football down there, but dude, some of these SEC games get sloppy defensively. I mean, they just do. Look at the box score, not right now, but anyone who's curious that's listening, look at the box score from the Arkansas Ole Miss game. I mean, it's like we get a score, you get a score, you get a 40-yard touchdown. I mean, there's no defense being played in that game, but I know Lane Kiffin still thinks they should have made the playoff last year after they pissed their pants at the end of the year. I like him about as much as I like Nick Saban.
What a great company to be a part of. In Nick's head.
Don't get me started, Drew. I know what you're doing right now. I know what you're doing. You're trying to get me to act like a jerk on the podcast again. I know I've done it before. I'm going to be good today, though. I'm not going to do it today.
Yeah. Although other fellow head coaches that are also in that is the Antichrist and the Devil are also in the same category, Nick, as Lane Kiffin and Nick Saban. All right, Nick.
2 asshole football coaches walked into a bar. The next game we want to touch on real quick included my pick of the week last week that you missed out on free money if you didn't cash in. It's the Ohio Bobcats plus 31.5 at Ohio State. Now, while the Bobcats did cover that plus 31.5, they also covered my easier no sweat first half pick, which was plus 18.5 in the first half, plus 18.5 points for the Bobcats in the first half at Ohio Stadium against the Ohio State University, plus 18.5. They allowed 13 points. They covered by 5.5 points. And as I predicted, the Bobcat defense is stout and did slow the Buckeyes down for a while. Now, fans, Coach Drew usually gives us the betting logic, but I'm going to give you my logic for this pick. I knew that Ohio's defense was really good. I knew that they would perform better than most people expected against the Buckeyes. But I also know that the overwhelming talent of a team like Ohio State can wear on a MAC team in the second half. And we love the Ohio Bobcats, and we're gonna rep the Bobcats hard going forward for the rest of the year. In fact, me and Drew both picked the Buffalo Bulls to win the MAC at the beginning of the year. Right now, my favorite is Toledo, followed by Ohio, and then Buffalo is kind of jousting for that second spot with Ohio. But they had a struggle over the weekend also against Kent State. Anyway, back to the Bobcats at the Buckeyes. Parker Navarro had a 67-yard touchdown pass to Chase Hendricks, and it was glorious. Unfortunately, that was about half of the Bobcats' offense for this entire game. The Ohio State defense was just too much against the Bobcat offense. Ohio State held the most underrated quarterback in America, the aforementioned Parker Navarro, to 94 passing yards in this game, and that's nothing to sneeze at. Navarro has performed well against bigger schools the last 2 games. They beat West Virginia. They really probably should have beat Rutgers on the road. Was that week 0 or week 1, Coach Drew?
With Rutgers was week 0.
That's what I thought. So, another shout out on the Ohio State defense. Arvell Reese, the linebacker / edge rusher, had a sack along with Caden Curry and Bo Atkinson and a couple other Buckeyes. Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, and Arvell Reese were the top 3 tacklers for the Buckeyes who really stifled this pretty solid Ohio passing game. I mean, Parker Navarro's been good throwing it and running it so far. So I think Ohio State's defense deserves more credit than they're going to get for how well they performed against Ohio, because Ohio has shown to perform well against more talented teams from bigger schools. Air quotes on all those comments, but the Bobcats have a nice squad on offense and defense, and the Ohio offense couldn't do much against Buckeyes. And so that means that they took their game planning seriously. They came out and executed the way Ryan Day and Drew's clone, Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator, wanted them to. Also wanted to say Julian Sayin, the best young quarterback in America is Julian Sayin. Had a good game, almost 350 yards almost 350 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions. Those came from Austin Mitchell and Michael Mack. They'll be in our no-fly zone later in the show. 2 Ohio Bobcats with a pick against Julian Sayin. But Sayin has continued to perform well. 350 passing yards against this Ohio defense is impressive. Also, freshman running back. You ready for this one, Drew? Freshman running back Bo Jackson I mean, the other Bo Jackson, and we will continue to call him that here on the Midwest Blitz. I'm not sure if that's a nickname that he wants, but that's the one that he's going to have. The other Bo Jackson had a, air quotes, joking, paltry 109 yards on 9 carries against the Bobcats. Holy smokes. So the other Bo Jackson, 109 yards. Jeremiah Smith, 9 catches for $150, a receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown. Carnell Tate, 5 catches for $101 and a tud. Max Clare had a touchdown, the Purdue transfer and Mackey Award candidate. So the usual suspects for the Buckeyes and a couple of others, including the other Bo Jackson, who we're going to hear more about as the season goes on. So MAC teams have been very, very good to us, Coach Drew, when it comes on the gambling side of things, haven't they?
Yeah, they have been. I mean, do you want to take a guess at what Bo Jackson's actual name is and not what they refer to?
Is this like you're going to tell me Santa Claus isn't real or something? Is that what you're going to do?
No, it's just even funnier when you actually figure out or why he's called Bo Jackson, but maybe because Bo Jackson's an older player, what his name is actually when they switched it.
What is it?
His full name is actually Lamar Bo Jackson Jr. They didn't want to say Lamar Jackson Jr.'s back there, so they went with Bo, his middle name or nickname. So now he goes by Bo Jackson, which is funny because, again, you call him the other Bo Jackson. This guy has to come up with something that's not already insert power superstar NFL player.
So do I have to stop and go pull my circa 1990 Bo Jackson poster that my parents got me before I even started kindergarten out here? I'm living in a world where they didn't want their kid to have to go by the name of a famous football player. So instead of calling him Lamar, they call him Bo instead. Is that what you just told me, Coach Drew?
Yeah, I guess he's received this nickname, I guess. Yeah, it's not even his middle name. It's nickname. Received Bo as a child as a homage to the famous athletes, but there's no family connection. I mean, the kid ran track, and I guess they're like, man, that's like Bo Jackson, and he's like, yeah, I'm Bo Jackson. So I think that's even funnier that we have to reference him as Bo Jackson now. What's his name? His name's Bo Jackson.
The other Bo Jackson.
I mean, he better be careful. If the Nebraska quarterback finds out about this, we might have, Patrick Raiola. Better watch out.
Don't call me Patrick Mahomes Raiola. The other Bo Jackson and Matt Patricia's doppelganger right here, Coach Drew here on the Midwest Blitz. You got anything else on this Bobcat Buckeye matchup? Did we have any assault and battery committed by any mascots or anything like that?
No, they kept it pretty clean. I mean, one of my favorite quotes from Ohio is like, we got to go visit our little brother, our younger brother. So it's funny that, again, Ohio is an older institution than Ohio State, but obviously all the funding didn't go to Ohio as they did, as you could probably fit 2 or 3 Ohio Bobcat stadiums in the horseshoe. Again, just talking about Ohio State, they are in a really good position. They beat Ohio. This could potentially be a college football playoff matchup, as if Ohio continues to do well and somehow wins in the first playoff week, because I don't know who they're going to play or how that's going to draw out. I mean, if they're playing Notre Dame somehow and Notre Dame has to go there, they'll probably win that one. Again, don't want to go there too much because some people don't like the whole Notre Dame's in the AP. But so we're talking about Ohio, and Ohio has Parker Navarro had a wrist injury. Did you know about that, Nick? I just was looking at some of the stats. I forgot Parker Navarro had a wrist injury and after the first quarter for 94 yards and didn't throw any interceptions. So that's huge. They had to go to a sub. So, what I think happened was Ohio has done enough, or maybe Ohio State doesn't give them enough respect, where one-on-one or whatever, they hung with them. But then Ohio State, from analytical and just having the right people, figured out how to make second half adjustments and just ran away with it. But that's all I wanted to add, was the second half adjustments really did help Ohio State pull away from this game, because the game was a lot closer than people would like to say from the number 1 team in the nation.
Number 1 team in America. I will say this for anyone listening to the Midwest Blitz. I had on, for the noon kickoff, I had on 5 games at the same time. So while I did have that game on, I did miss the Parker Navarro injury. It's hard to watch 5 games at the same time.
But he still didn't throw an interception, which is huge against Ohio State.
It's impressive for sure. Did we say this last week? I was watching a game last year, and it was a good team on the road against a team with a great defense, and I thought to myself, let alone trying to score against a great defense, it's hard to run offense and not turn the ball over, let alone score points on the road. So something to think about.
Yep. Now, before we get to where I was at Notre Dame this weekend, which obviously you can tell I'm so excited to talk about, but I have to come in front of the people and assure them as a stoic.
Drew's a man
No
of the
emotions.
people. Drew's a man of the people, and he's going to talk about it, and we're going to share our feelings a little bit. There's no shame, Drew.
Yes, absolutely. Before we get there, I just want to let you know that we're not the only team that was upsetted on our home turf. Vanderbilt, one of the teams in Tennessee that won this weekend. Somebody just called a stray. They or a missed field goal, as Nick is like trying not to joke on TV here. So South Carolina got upset by Vanderbilt. Now, why I want to talk about this game? 1, Vanderbilt beat them 31-7 and now are ranked. Number 2, the other thing I want to talk about is there was a character, as people would say, Theo Vaughn was on the sidelines, which drew a lot of attention. And so I guess Theo Vaughn made a bet with the quarterback that if they win or something of another, that he gets to date the Vanderbilt's quarterback's mom.
This goes to prove that Vanderbilt 8th-year COVID senior quarterback Diego Pavia will do anything to garner media attention, including try to pimp his mom out to a YouTube celebrity. Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, so Theo Vaughn is gonna have a nice date. Some people said he already laid out his attire and he was super excited. I just love that they interviewed him and that's what like popped out of question. Hopefully he doesn't get in trouble for gambling. As we know, even if you gamble on yourself, it's still considered gambling.
He could always transfer to Oklahoma. They don't mind if their quarterback gets in trouble for gambling before he comes to their school.
Or he can go to another SEC school where he can speed or traffic people because, you know, that's what SEC is known for.
You know what I thought you were going to say? You know what I thought you were going to say about this Vanderbilt South Carolina upset? I thought you were going to say that it proves that we found another overrated SEC team that shouldn't have been ranked as high as they were. And I'm talking about South Carolina, and I'm talking about the Florida Gators also. The Alabama Crimson Tide against Florida State. Are we noticing a trend here that now that other teams and other conferences can pay players, that some of these SEC teams that are highly touted in the offseason come into the year and kind of crap the bed? Is that just me? What's going on there, Drew?
Well, they got blown out at home, South Carolina did, and they were a bubble team last year. This does not look good for their chances again going into this year.
What happened when the South Carolina Gamecocks played the Illinois Fighting Illini in the bowl game last year? What happened then, Drew?
Well, first they didn't realize that subbing out players with 3 seconds, you have to allow the defense to also allow for subs that cause a delay of games. They have to learn how to play football correctly and learn the rules.
You know, Coach Bielema was nice enough to teach the Duke Blue Devils that same lesson about a week ago, though. So really, I think that the other conferences should be thanking the Big Ten for all the lessons about football that they learn when they compete against Big Ten programs.
Yeah, and then somehow Brent Bielema also told Tulane that just imagine Duke wearing Northwestern uniforms, as Northwestern also beat Duke this weekend. So good job collecting $7 million and paying them to beat you on your home turf. That was fun. Another game we're going to go around and cover before we get to my upset. So happy to talk about other upsets before I get to mine. It's always fun.
Yeah, it is. It takes the sting off a little.
So another swindler of a head coach. Now, I will say he's a very positive person, and I'm sure he's raised a lot of men. But a lot of Clemson fans have called us frauds. And I get it. We're 0-2, as Notre Dame is. But you know who also is a fraud? Clemson, as I'm referencing to. Clemson got upset by the Golden Jackets. Another sting kills another big team, as they stung FSU to begin last year. They stung Clemson. They stung them with the game-winning field goal. Clemson's no longer ranked. See ya. No more belief from the AP from them. Did you watch any of that game, Nick, or have any thoughts about that one?
I watched as much of it as I could. That Haynes King for Georgia Tech, he's definitely a competitor. I love Georgia Tech's coach. When I see him interviewed, he just reminds me of high school coaches that I coached with and against. that he just really seems like he loves his players. He really loves Georgia Tech and just the type of guy you would want to represent your school. I mean, we've seen a lot of teams that hire alumni as coaches, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. This team's fun to watch because the coach is so likable. It's hard for me not to root for him. And also, Clemson already burned me the first week of the year when I had faith in them, so Clemson is dead to me now. Let's go Yellow Jackets, though. Let's go
Yeah.
Jackets. I'm down with it.
I did pick Clemson to win one of my bets, the ACC. I think that's hard. I think that's now beyond believable. Another team had to return their Cinderella shoes. University of Southern Florida got humbled by Miami, the original NIL giver-outers, this time legally.
Did you mean to say South Florida? Remember the Key and Peele sketch? The one guy's like, Jack Theratrix Quazon from South Florida. South Florida.
South will read, yeah. Yeah. I mean, USF was going in there. I stayed away from this game. I kept telling myself, no, they're not going to cover. No, they're not going to cover. And then Carson Beck, with his 6 year of wisdom, came out and beat this team and humbled them.
He's a grown-ass man, Coach Drew. He's a grown-ass man.
Miami is sneakily, have figured out how to pay players again because they have had many years of experience of this in the early 2000s. They just had to pull up some old books of how to do it.
The entirety of the 1990s. Hey, Miami's legit, dude. I think Miami's scary. We like old man Beck at quarterback. I'm a fan of his. I think he had a hell of a game against the Irish. Dude, Miami's legit. They're pretty well-rounded, and their defense has improved a lot from last year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just teasing. I mean, Mikey knows what's going on.
That's your
Mikey,
boy
our friend of the podcast.
Beach.
Yeah. From Little Havana, they call it, where he's from, actually.
I always wanted to go there. It sounds so fun.
Maybe we got to go down there when there's another game. The Midwest Blitz goes to Miami.
You know who's been there? Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza. He's been there, and so is his brother Alberto Mendoza.
So fun names to say. Did you know there's a Mendoza building at Notre Dame? As I biked around, I found that out. I said we're already honoring IU quarterbacks who are going to whoop our ass in the college football playoffs. I was manifesting this like revenge game, but you got to make it to the college football playoff to play in it, and I'm referring to Notre Dame, not IU.
Ladies and gentlemen, losing a tough game, it takes your mind to some dark places, as Coach Drew is displaying right now.
Oh yes, there's many dark places when you have to see SEC refs, but I'm going to continue on going through the show as much as I can. So, another game that, we're going to mention another Tennessee team, the Tennessee Volunteers, did not take care of home field advantage when they had the checkerboards out versus Georgia. Uh-oh.
Yeah. You want to keep going, or can I throw a few shreds of cheddar cheese on top of this baked potato?
Yeah, well, when your quarterback starts off 14-14, you dominate the team and still lose. I don't know how that happens. Go ahead, Nick.
Well, let's see. What did I see in my notes here to piggyback on what you said? How do you blow this lead? Tennessee dominated early, and the Dogs dominated late. Woof, woof. It started with a Tennessee 21-0 lead, I believe. And then Georgia opened the second half. This is when a real can of whoop-ass starts to happen in a game. This is when momentum changes. Georgia had an 8-minute touchdown drive to open the third quarter and take the lead 24-21. And when you have an 8-minute touchdown drive, you have asserted your will against the other team's defense in a heavy way. And that always involves A, a level of physicality, and B, a level of execution. And after that, Kirby Smart and the Dogs, they were down to run the yard down there at Neyland. But Tennessee had an unfortunate field goal miss that I'm sure everybody's seen at this point. I do want to point out a great play by the long snapper from Tennessee. We need a special teams player of the week segment, Drew. When are we going to get a special teams player of the week segment? Let's open an honorary special teams player of the week segment for long snapper Bennett Brady from Tennessee who snapped the ball, ran down and saved a touchback. He dove, extended one arm, saved it, and then Tennessee downed the ball at the 3-yard line. It was a really key play, I thought, in the first half of the game for Tennessee. Yeah, it was awesome. When you get those special teams plays like that, that's really fun. You don't get one every game. You might not even see one like that every week if you tried to watch every game. But yeah, Bennett Brady, you're my honorary special teams player of the week. I got a game ball for you on that one. But yeah, once Kirby and the boys settled in, one of the things that I saw, I think I heard Joel Klatt say it going into this game, is that Kirby Smart and the Georgia defense were really good at containing that kind of veer and shoot widespread offense that Tennessee likes to employ. And I think what happened is Josh Heupel, a coach who I really like and admire, you got to like any coach that goes into the tunnel and gives his mom a hug after the game. That's pretty awesome to see out of Coach Heupel. But Josh Heupel had a really great opening game plan that must have thrown Kirby's defense some curveballs. And then once Georgia made an adjustment, Tennessee had a lot more trouble scoring. Not that they still had some offensive success after that, but they looked like they were playing against a freshman team on their first few drives. And then after that, Georgia started to put the locks on them here and there.
Yeah, that Georgia defense is definitely something that is definitely been a problem for a lot of teams for a long time. And everybody thought this was the year, maybe if Joey talked to Theo
Aguilar.
about talk about his mom dating Theo Vaughn, they might have had some better success there. I mean, sometimes, it's tough being a Tennessee fan because, you're watching the fall of a quarterback who left you basically high and dry. You have an opportunity to beat Georgia at home.
I'll say two things. I
think
out. Joey Aguilar is going to have a great year. He's already having a good year for the Vols. Their season's not over, but I'll also say this to a greater degree. This is a fantastic road victory for Kirby Smart's Bulldogs against 102,000 screaming fans at Neyland Stadium. I mean, that's a win that's going to build you some clout with the playoff committee, assuming that they stay in the playoff hunt, and we expect they will.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, how everything's standing is, it's starting to get interesting. There's a couple SEC games that are played. There was another one that we're just going to briefly run over, and it has to do with Bayou Brian and the formerly ranked Florida Gators, who, like Miami, was a powerhouse earlier, and they might have paid players. We don't know. There's conspiracies about that. They've been documented, doing some crazy things after midnight with Christian pastors. So you want to tackle this one real quick, Nick?
It just got weird here on the Midwest Blitz. A little more weird than I would have been comfortable with.
You mean weird like putting on war paint as, basically the second coming of Jesus to some people and going to lift with criminals and people playing craps in the weightlifting room? Wow, maybe doing some other stuff that they couldn't document, but they released it to public because that was okay?
I would accuse Drew of committing some kind of slander here, but if anybody saw our Rivalry fan pen pal program for the Iowa State game, I definitely have read some slanderous things here on the Blitz. So, Drew, I'm gonna let it slide this time. So, Bayou Brian's defense, who again, their defensive coordinator, the highest paid assistant coach in the country, still earning his paycheck. I believe they had 5 interceptions against Florida Gators offense and produced.
Well, what's the quarterback of Florida? Anthony Richardson?
Yeah. DJ, don't call me Anthony Richardson Lagway. Yeah, Florida threw 5 interceptions.
Thank you.
See, Drew, I was going to try not to bust this kid's ass, and then here you are. You're dragging me into all this nonsense like you always do. I'm actually a pretty nice guy until Drew gets me all riled up, and then I turn into a total dick. So Bayou Brian and his Bayou Bengal defense generated 5 interceptions, which is fantastic. I think the problem with that, if I've got my numbers correct, is that they scored 0 points off of those 5 interceptions. And then when he was asked about it in the post-game press conference, he cried like a baby and whined and pouted. Can I say like a schoolboy bitch? Is that permissible here on the Midwest Blitz?
That's about right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, Bayou Brian was asked very simple questions. He was asked, what about the offense? And he goes, what about the offense? And then he's like, let me bang this table real quick. We won, didn't we? At least you won. And it's like, yeah, you scored 20 against Florida, who's not a good team. And then he's like, well, do you got any other questions? And he's like, well, you're probably not going to like this next question I asked. What about the third down problems you guys are having? What does it matter? We're winning games. It doesn't matter our third down problems. And the guy's like, okay, sure, it doesn't matter now, but it is going to matter. And I'm just trying to help you out to cover your bases now. But instead of that, instead of going the high road, like Bayou Brian the Saint does, always setting the example, he decided to go land down under, where he is in Louisiana, and started playing his banjo over there and going all crazy and riled up. Ain't that right, Nick?
Bayou Brian loves to play the banjo with his family down there in
And
the
he
Bayou.
Bojangles.
Yeah. Hey, people from Louisiana, we don't have a problem with you, but if you haven't figured it out yet, Brian Kelly is a dick. And if you don't hate him yet, you will eventually. We're from the Midwest, we know.
If you spray him with water, he might turn into an alien.
I'm not sure where that came from. That comment does not represent the opinions or feelings of Big Nick here on the Midwest Blitz. Direct all inquiries to Coach Drew at MidwestBlitz.com. Yeah, I'm going to speculate something. So if LSU's season somehow unravels, and they've had a good year so far, so I'm not saying anything bad about them per se, besides their head coach, I feel like Brian Kelly and his coaching staff spent the entire offseason game planning that Clemson game so he could break the season opener losing streak that he had. He had lost his first 3 season openers. I don't think they've looked as sharp in any of the last 2 games, but I mean, I reluctantly was throwing a lot of praise and handing out a lot of flowers to them. I'm still handing out flowers to LSU defense. They're much improved. Whit Weeks at linebacker is a pretty fun kid. If you watch that Netflix series, he's got at least one brother on the team, I believe. I'm not sure they're quite as good as I thought they were. I mean, it's a good win to beat Florida. Florida's a talented team. I mean, the game prior to the Florida game, when they played Sisters of the Blind and Poor, they didn't look very good. They had some struggles and struggles in terms of executions. Keep an eye on Bayou Brian and his Bayou family moving forward, but I think Florida's on the pretender list now for sure, right? Along with Clemson.
Yeah, for sure they're on the pretenders list. There's also some honorable mentions I want to get to, Nick, but when you're ready, I'll let you know. Or you let me know.
On the pretenders list?
Yeah, if you're ready.
I'm going to go... I got Florida and Clemson on there. Do you want to read it right now? I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have your pretenders list handy?
Yeah, I do, actually. Texas actually is playing as a pretender right now, as they only beat UTEP by 17 at home, and Arch Manning did not look good. Another program that might be pretenders too, ironically, is Iowa State that beat Iowa. They only beat Arkansas State. Not Arkansas, but Arkansas State by 8. So that's another pretender.
What about Kansas State? Kansas State's having a little bit of a rough go of it too, and them and the Cyclones were ranked about evenly there in the mid-teens, both expected to be Big 12 contenders, and maybe they both still are, but Kansas State struggled. Iowa State had a little struggle over the weekend.
Yep, so those are some honorary pretenders. I also want to mention an honorary fan. Actually, this is actually kind of funny. They were showing a video of not Putty, but the duck from Oregon, Puddles, and he was quacking on the sidelines, and he was basically acting as the Northwestern marching band, and someone was recording him, and they didn't clip out the guy that was like said, F you, Puddles, F you, go away, Puddles, F you, and it was one guy just shouting at him as he was doing his little duck thing, and he was like acting as a Northwestern, and I'm just like, that one fan, man, shout out to you. We heard you loud and clear. Don't worry, your message got across, okay? You don't like Oregon. And then also the Northwestern Wildcat came up to Puddles and showed him a picture of him, and of like a bobblehead getting disconnected, and he's like, go home, you're not welcome here. And it showed him like with his like mascot head coming off. That was another honorable mention. So Northwestern might not have won the game, but they definitely showed some fight, more than we could say other programs did this weekend.
Well, if the Ohio Bobcat isn't going to assault the Ohio State Buckeye Brutus, that's pretty close second. That really kind of cheered me up, Drew. I was a little disappointed with no mascot shenanigans at Ohio Stadium. My battery's getting a little low. Texas A&M at Notre Dame. We got to do it sometime.
Let's go to it.
So, unfortunately, Notre Dame's playoff hopes took a tumble after a disappointing home loss to Texas A&M. I'm going to give you a stat before we get into this discussion because I know it's going to come up. Notre Dame had 5 penalties for 30-some yards. Texas A&M had 13 penalties for 86 yards, including a kickoff return for a touchdown that got called back on a holding. I will say that was holding, so I'm not complaining about that call, but we're going to address complaints about the game-winning touchdown by Texas A&M, where some people cried foul that there was no holding call. This SEC officiating crew was not shy about throwing flags against the Aggies, so that's why I gave those numbers to start off. Some things to be happy about from Notre Dame. I thought that Notre Dame's game plan was a lot better. Denbrock included Jeremiah Love to a much greater degree. I thought the game plan was a lot better. Jadarian Price was also, I think he had 12 carries, had a solid game. I like the shift in direction that Mike Denbrock took there, and we were critical of him, so I want to point out that I thought that the game plan was a lot better. Malachi Fields has been a great pickup, the transfer from Virginia. He's a dog. TJ Carr looked good again. There's one more thing on offense and special teams that we're going to talk about, but I'm going to save it for a minute. The Texas A&M defense wasn't great. They were barely good enough to win, but they were good enough to win. They had 2 sacks, although I thought Notre Dame's offensive line's pass protection, I thought it was better this week than what we had seen in the Miami game. Granted, maybe the competition's not quite as stiff, but you have to give credit where credit's due. There was an interception by All-SEC linebacker Scooby Williams, who's on my all-names team. Scooby Williams, real good player, had a pick. The Notre Dame offense generated 33 points in this game. The Texas A&M offense generated 41. Well, the final score was 41-40, right, Coach Drew?
Yeah, absolutely.
Notre Dame was the beneficiary of a blocked punt for a touchdown, and the special teams coordinator gets full credit from me on that front. But I don't know who made the decision. Okay, the missed PAT is the 1 point that cost Notre Dame this game that could have been in overtime. Right or wrong, Coach Drew?
Absolutely.
The missed PAT is 100% on Tyler Buckner, the holder, who we're going to talk about here in a second, and whichever coach, obviously Freeman's at the top of the food chain here, whoever decided that having Tyler Buckner be your holder really, really screwed the pooch here. And here's why, Coach Drew. When you pick your holder for PAT, this is one of the players that may not be the best player on the team, but he's one of the guys that you trust more than anybody. Because being the holder is not necessarily an exciting job or a glamorous job, but it's got to be somebody who you trust, somebody you would hand your wallet to, someone that you would, give the keys to your house to. Now, we're talking about Tyler Buckner, who was the starting quarterback here in the past and transferred to Alabama. And then when things went sour there, and did I not say this in the preseason show when we talked about the quarterback situation? Did I not say if I was the coach, I wouldn't even let Tyler Buckner come back and be on the team? He can go play on the lacrosse team or do all that other stuff he wants to do. Did I say that?
Yeah, absolutely. You did mention that you didn't want to buy this football team.
Okay, so you want to let the kid that left and then came back and is basically a glorified scout team player who contributes nothing to the team, and you want to give him a job as important as being the holder on PAT, that is a horseshit coaching decision. It's a horrible coaching decision. These are the types of things on special teams that cost you games. So your offense scored 33 points to 41 from the opposition, and your PAT guy did jack all. Your PAT guy screwed you on the hold. You scored 33 points. You had a special teams touchdown at home in a great home environment. A special teams touchdown at home, you should win this game. But you know what costs you the game is when you do stuff like this and you put somebody out there who's not a trustworthy player, who does not have a proven track record of success out there to do an important job. And ultimately, that cost Notre Dame the game. I mean, we could talk about the Notre Dame defense and their struggles, their lack of a pass rush. The running back Moss was pretty effective. He had 80 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was effective in the red zone. Notre Dame's defense had its problems, but you cannot have this guy be your holder on PAT. You just can't.
Yeah. The biggest thing on that play was I was on the opposite end zone when it happened, and I literally saw it, and I had the covers -6.5, and I go, there's no way that it's going to be 6 and not 6.5 if we end up winning this game, which we didn't win at all, but in hindsight, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, you know how many people are going to be pissed at this guy because they couldn't get the cover? Like, Vegas knew Tyler Buckner was going to do something. That's why I was 6.5 and not 7.5. They're like, this guy's going to fumble the snap or something. We can't lose money on this guy. And Vegas was super happy when that happened. They were even happier when the SEC decided to pack in their yellow flags and only use them for certain false starts. Being at that game, the amount of false starts, I did notice some tendencies of this officiating crew, whether Texas A&M actually committed all these false starts that were in the game or fidgets or whatever happened that triggered it. It
number
seems
78. Number 78 had at least 2 of them, I think, the offensive tackle.
Yeah, like they literally had it where they will call it there. That's all I'm going to say is if false starts and holding, they call it there. When they're working to the outside of the zones, you're allowed to pull on the jersey and slow them down, or you can do some push-offs. The SEC, because it's an air raid, it's not like the Big Ten. They just throw the ball around. They let the boys play on the outside, which, again, me and Nick Russ football, and we were talking about this, even though that there was a potential holding call on that last play, that does not sum up everything in the game. If you play a sport, right, and your thought is, well, if they call that interference or blah, 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 no. Unless it, like, even if you go back to when the Rams played New Orleans, right, and it was clear pass interference, like, what about everything that adds up before that play happened? It's unfortunate. Any good coach tells you, do not let the refs control the game. There's a lot of good refs, and there's a lot going on, and maybe he didn't see it, and it's also in real time. But I'm sure the accuracy of those refs that game, even though they were SEC, and I said a lot of foul things about them and reminded everybody that was a Notre Dame fan there that remember who the fans are. And then I had to remind the Texas A&M fans who were there that, see, even the SEC doesn't like you guys. So there was a lot of fun in my if you sit around me during a game, I definitely lean into some things. Do you want to break in some more, or what do you want to do, Nick? You want me to break in a little bit more about it?
Let's just talk Notre Dame defense here for a second, because, I mean, I just placed the blame on the special teams decisions and the error by the holder. Giving up 41 points is not good. A&M has a good offense. It's not really a super balanced offense, and so I think we have to question defensive coordinator Chris Ash and some of the strategic changes that he's had, incorporating more zone versus man-to-man. Now let's go pros and cons for a second. Whatever they were doing coverage-wise clearly did not slow down the Texas A&M passing game led by Marcel Reed. Marcel Reed is a dangerous athlete at the quarterback position. I think he completed at or slightly less than 50% of his passes, but boy, he could find a hole down the field in the coverage and dot one in there. I'm not sure that the strategic changes defensively have worked out. Notre Dame allowed 41 points against this A&M team, who scored 44 against University of Texas El Paso a couple of weeks ago. So this is supposed to be an elite defensive back group, and I do think they have a lot of players, but I think that play calling still has a lot to do with, you got to put those guys out there in positions to be successful. Playing more zone coverage, I think, allowed them to keep Marcel Reed in check in the run game. I think he had like 7 carries for 35 yards or something like that, which is pretty solid, but he was also allowed to run around behind the line of scrimmage to buy time in order to find receivers down the field. Notre Dame's not getting enough pressure on people, and I don't think the zone concepts they've incorporated have made things harder for opposing quarterbacks. It certainly didn't for Beck, and it didn't for Marcel Reed when the game was on the line the other night.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the second play of the game, and when Reese threw that ball, I said, oh, that's a TD, and he inaccurately threw it. I think one of the biggest things is we talked about this before, either it was in the podcast or even just us having side conversations. When a defensive scheme is a 3-4 and it goes to a 4-3, you're completely changing the identity of the defense, and that's similar to going from man coverage to zone. With man coverage, you just basically go one-on-one, and it looks like backyard football, and as long as you don't get beat by speed, you're okay, and you have some guys in zone. While the difference is you have more zone in the other way, where you take a guy to a zone area. Now, here's the big issue that I see with Notre Dame is usually these zone areas are small pockets, where if a quarterback hits that small pocket, he has a chance. I want to say he has a higher chance of hitting him there, but if he doesn't, the defense can then cover that area. because you're covering the space with the zone. With Notre Dame, it seems as much as they don't understand what areas to cover, and the offense, the coordinators up top that are watching it and calling the plays down to the quarterback, they're like, yo, so if we get a guy to cross through this area, like, it's a big box, and literally anybody can just lay one up there. I mean, a high school JV quarterback can hit a person in stride at how much loose this defense is. Watching it live is so bad. Every time someone goes on a fly route, there's nobody in the back to cover. There's zero pressure up front. I mean, to be hypercritical about this defense is one thing, but we were number 3, number 4, number 5 overall defenses the last couple of years, and now we're 123. And there's like 135 schools. And yes, we did play 2 teams that are very tough, but at the same time, like, you just can't have numbers like that. You just can't, especially at home. The refs, the biggest thing is what's frustrating, and I think this comes from a fan's perspective, is we give up a 45-yard play to a receiver that's wide open, and then immediately on the next play, we get flagged for holding because we can't cover. But yet we go after the refs because they're calling holding. But its reality is because we can't slow down their damn our offense. That's the sad reality of it.
We don't want to drag this out. This is, not a fun discussion about Notre Dame going 0-2 and the rest of their season kind of being in jeopardy. We could go on. I could talk about the difference in philosophy and statistics between man coverage and zone coverage and all that. But I think I'm going to put it this way. Notre Dame's defense kind of seems to play on their heels right now, whereas before they seemed and felt more aggressive, like they could dictate to the opposing offense. And I just don't feel like that at all right now, Drew. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, exactly. Like, they can bully the offense to do stuff that they want them to do. They can't do that anymore. The offense can now do everything that they need to do.
It's reactionary, yeah.
One of the things that we also wanted to bring up with the Midwest Blitz was that I called out the second Wildcat of the game. I didn't think about it. Direct snap to the running back. That was the second time. It actually came out about 8 or 10 more times in the game, and Nick was actually going to give us some insight of why that's important.
Okay, so we were complaining, and a lot of Notre Dame fans were complaining about the design QB runs that they had with CJ Carr against Miami, and that linebacker from Miami about broke CJ Carr's ribs on that one hit. It was vicious. What Coach Denbrock decided to do, which I questioned live, and I think a lot of fans did. Drew said there was some boos in the stadium when they went to the Wildcat look with Love as the Wildcat quarterback. So when you go to that either design QB run or that Wildcat look, you actually gain a blocker. Now, nobody gets this the first time they hear it, and I certainly didn't either 15 years ago when the Dolphins started running the Wildcat in the NFL, but I learned to understand it. If you take your quarterback and split him out as a wide receiver, a corner has to go out there and cover him. So your quarterback has effectively blocked that guy or taken him out of the play, even if he doesn't lay a finger on him. When you have somebody in the backfield that hands the ball off, the quarterback handing the ball off can't block anybody. And even if he does a little fake bootleg or something, he still really doesn't affect the play that much. So what Denbrock was trying to do, and he's had this luxury with Riley Leonard at quarterback last year, is let's gain a numbers advantage by snapping it directly to somebody who has the ability to run it between the tackles. And I liked it that they didn't put CJ Carr in that position this week. They had a little success on some of those plays and had some failures on some of those plays, but that's why Denbrock's doing that. And the Wildcat's not purely a gimmick. A lot of people see it that way, but you literally do gain a player basically because you have an extra blocker, because you eliminate the middleman being the quarterback that hands the ball off. So there is some validity to that as a strategy. And that was something me and Drew talked about off the air that he wanted me to touch on. Thanks for bringing that up, Drew.
Yeah, you're welcome. And again, CJ Carr played phenomenal. There was still some growing pains. As you saw that he made some decisions. There was one where he literally just threw the ball, it looked like to the middle of nowhere, and then there was a guy there for Texas A&M, picked it off. There was another indecision that he clapped his hands before he walked away, and they snapped the ball, and Love had to recover it. Luckily, he was back there. That could have been a Texas A&M fumble recovery, scored to the touchdown. I also do want to mention that Leonard Moore also had pick, and it was great. And I'd like to shout out Region Rat Drake Bowen, who, if he wasn't on defense, we would be in real trouble because he definitely stuck some guys, and I can't wait to see him play on Sundays.
He laid the
He's the reason
boom
why-
on somebody on that one play.
I mean, he stuck, like, he tracked someone down. It might have been the quarterback, but he trucked some, like, they looked like a for sure score, and he came out of nowhere like, water boy. It was more like, Drake, and he just came out. I mean, it was awesome.
Drake Bowen. Yeah, Drake Bowen had an amazing hit. Leonard Moore had that interception. He's going to be in my no-fly zone also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also,
You ready to go to Ballers of the Week? Oh, okay, go ahead.
One more comment. Drake Bowen was in coverage on the tight end when they threw the game-winning touchdown. That was a great play call by A&M because that guy's usually considered their blocking tight end. And Bowen did pick him up in coverage, but that guy's like 6'6", 260, 59.5. You got like a 270-pound dude that boxes you out on the goal line who they haven't thrown the ball to, I don't think, the whole game. And so that put Bowen in a tough position. He was there to make a play, but it was a good play call by A&M. So I don't fault him for them catching that pass. Just sometimes it's a good play design. Yeah, you want to go Ballers of the Week?
Yeah, let's go to Ballers of the Week.
Now it's time for Ballers of the Week. Our selections for top offensive skill players from this past weekend. Ready to put some points on the board? Here we go.
All right, go ahead, Nick. Who's your Baller of the Week this week?
I got a few. I got Jeremiah Smith, who had 170 total yards and 2 touchdowns, one of them rushing for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Jeremiah Smith had a little criticism for a couple drops against Texas, but Jeremiah Smith is back in the zone, and he's also one of our Ballers of the Week. Also, hate to do it, Wisconsin fans, but Ty Simpson's 382 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions against Wisconsin was impressive, especially considering Alabama really didn't have much run game support for him. He was pretty much just back there slinging around the yard. So Ty Simpson, you're one of my Ballers of the Week. And then I got to get my guy from IU, Omar Cooper, had 4 touchdowns against Indiana State. I think that Cignetti is using Cooper right now, not as a decoy, but more of a, yeah, we know that our other wide receiver, Elijah Surratt's an All-American, but this guy's pretty good too. So he's going to make defenses have to choose whether they want to focus on Cooper or you put them on opposite sides of the field, and you let Fernando Mendoza cook at quarterback. Omar Cooper, you're one of my Ballers of the Week. Who you got, Coach Drew?
I got Jacoby Lane. He had 150 yards against Purdue on 3 receptions. I mean, 115 yards and you have 10 receptions. You're like, oh, he's averaging 10. I mean, this guy just lit it up against him, or against Purdue, I should say. I also have Luke Aldemeyer from Illinois, who had 196 yards and 2 TDs. He's averaging 2.5 touchdowns, I believe, each game he's played in this year, and is looking like, if he continues this, he might be on that path to be one of the first Heisman winners at Illinois in a long time. I want to say first, but one of the Heisman winners for a long time with the Illini. Also, Ryan Brown from Purdue is 305, 1 TD. I liked him a lot for my Ballers of the Week. Do you want to go to offensive line?
Let's do some buffet busters, Coach Drew.
Ring the dinner bell. It's time for Buffet Busters, our top offensive line performers of the week. Anyone in the mood for pancakes?
All right, Nick, go ahead with who do you got for offensive?
Again, I got to go back to the Wisconsin-Alabama game. I got Caden Proctor, who's 6'6", 365 pounds, future top 5 pick in the NFL draft, who laid an absolute monster pancake block on a Wisconsin defensive back about 25 yards down the field. You shouldn't be that big and be able to move that well, but Caden Proctor proves that, yes, offensive linemen can be athletes too. So, Caden Proctor, you are my buffet buster of the week. Who you got, Coach Drew?
Yeah, I just want to shout out Miami's offensive line. Really continue to set the whole offensive line for Miami. Again, proving Carson Beck is going to be somebody to watch out for down the line, trying to take over Aldemeyer for the Heisman. I also want to give a shout out to Ohio State, who eliminated the Bobcats' attack and basically neutralized them and making them look like a MAC team, unfortunately. You want to go to In the Trenches?
Yes, sir.
If you enjoy quarterbacks with grass stains on their jersey and pretty boy ball carriers running for their lives, this might be your favorite part of the show. It's time to go in the trenches, where we celebrate the top defensive line and linebacker players of the week.
All right, who do you got for in the trenches?
I got Arvell Reese for the Ohio State University Buckeyes. He had 7 tackles, a sack, and 2 pass breakups. Very versatile all over the field. He also had a big game against Texas when they beat the Longhorns there a couple weeks ago. So Arvell Reese, you are in the trenches with us, the linebacker / edge rusher. You are in the trenches, Arvell Reese. You get a game ball. And I'm going to give Drake Bowen one just for that one hit. He laid that dude for A&M out. Drake Bowen, Region Rat legend, Andrean alumni, Notre Dame Fighting Irish linebacker, team captain. You get a game ball. You are in the trenches with us. Coach Drew, who you got?
Yeah, I got Drake Bowen also against Texas A&M. If he's not in this game and he's not playing, this game could be a lot worse, let me tell you. But I also have to give it to Eric Gentry out of USC with 2 sacks against Purdue. I mean, he's off to a great start this year. He's 21 total tackles, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and he's going to need all that to beat Michigan State, who's starting off the year 3-0. That's going to be a game to watch next week at night.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to go to the no-fly zone?
I'd love to.
2/3 of the earth is covered by water. The other third is covered by our next segment. Time to enter the no-fly zone with our top defensive back performers of the week.
All right, Nick, who do you got for the no-fly zone?
So we hyped up the Ohio Bobcats defense earlier, and 2 studs for them, Austin Mitchell and Michael Mack, both had interceptions against superstar freshman quarterback Julian Sayin. So Austin Mitchell and Michael Mack, you are in the no-fly zone with us. You both get a game ball. They made life hard for Julian Sayin in that Buckeye passing game. And then we got to give one to the Fighting Irish All-American Leonard Moore. He's taken over the mantle as their best cornerback, even though they unfortunately had the loss. Leonard Moore is still a baller. He's in the no-fly zone with us because of his interception. Who do you have in your no-fly zone?
Yeah, my new fly zone is Bishop Fitzgerald. He had 2 interceptions. He's from USC against Purdue. I also have Barry Hubert. He had 2 picks against Wisconsin. You know.
Did.
And I had Leonard Moore. He had 1 interception. I really thought Leonard Moore played a great game. He's one of the guys that I think you put him in any defensive system, he's gonna ball, which again goes back to how bad it is. The Notre Dame has a couple pieces, again, and my team biased, but I'm telling you, I was there, I saw it, and this game could have been a lot worse. Like, if you actually watch it and you see these guys just straight out ball out and play, it'll be a lot worse. He actually had an interception. Almost had another one, too. Another one is an honorary Jamal Jarrett. He had a pick 6 big boy, and he rubs his tummy afterwards. A D tackle from USC.
Big old
It is
boys.
beautiful. If you watch it, it's hilarious. Go ahead and watch that after the Midwest Blitz. You're going to enjoy it. Any other guys you want to touch on, or is it about time to go?
Well, before we do our Midwest goodbye, we always like to see a big man get to touch the football, and that was pretty funny when he rubbed his belly after. Boy, I'm dying, Coach Drew. Choking on my emotions after that Irish loss last night, man. What a letdown. You can't give up 40 points, man. You can't give up 40 points, especially against a team that doesn't run the ball that well. I mean, if they were keeping you off balance, run and pass, it would make a little more sense to me. But I mean, they were just kind of able to drop back and sling it around the yard with Marcel Reed, and that Mario Craver's a really good receiver for them. But let's talk about something happy before we sign the show off.
Yeah, let's talk about what is happy that's happening is, I don't know, I've been pretty depressed. Both the Bears and Notre Dame are 0-2.
Hey,
so I'm having a great time.
You ever have a cheeseburger from Jaggers? Not a sponsor of the show. Have you ever had one?
No, I haven't.
They're pretty good. If you see a Jaggers, you should get a burger there. I had one earlier. Pretty solid.
Yeah, I would love.
Yeah.
Milkshake and a burger is a classic.
Right,
A lot of people actually do not know how good of a combo that is. Are you a Frosty and a Fry guy at Wendy's, or do you think that's devil's work?
A nice young lady I met in high school converted me to a Frosty and Fries guy. It's hard to go wrong there. Salty and sweet.
That sounds like more of the Midwest After Dark than the Midwest Blitz, but I digress.
I wasn't going to bring that part up.
When you hear the boom, chicka, wow, wow, you know when they're transitioning from the Midwest Blitz to the Midwest Blitz After Dark.
Yeah.
Where everything and anything goes. It's also part of the Midwest Goodbye.
This has been another Midwest Goodbye, brought to you by the Midwest Blitz. It ain't the first and it won't be the last. See you, Coach Drew.
See you, Nick. Coach Drew signing off.
See you later, guys.